Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB pro bodybuilder. Today's guest is Henry Jackson. Henry, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man.
For sure, Henry. So I like to start each conversation off with asking my guests the same two questions. So the first question that I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
A few of my favorite of all time. Typically, probably not the best bodybuilders of all time, but I got into the NPC, just a little background. I got into the NPC in 2015. So at the time, some of the guys I really looked up to were Compton and McCarver, just because they were around my age and, they were doing something I wanted to do. And I really loved their training styles. And of course, of all time, man, of course, Ronnie Coleman. I love Ronnie Coleman's attitude and his work ethic. So I know that's cliche, but yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. It's usually, I'd say probably 90% of my guests, one of their favorite bodybuilders of all time is either Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler. And a lot of times it's both, because if you're around our age, a lot of us grew up the first bodybuilders or some of the stars of the magazines back in the day were Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, because they had those legendary battles. So no, that's not cliche, man. It's legit. It's really cool. So I want to ask you, at what age, Henry, did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
I started lifting weights at the age of 14. I took a weight training class. And, in all honesty, I just wanted to gain some muscle. That was really it. I think around age of 14, I was only like 130 pounds. So, just growing up pretty much skinny all my life, I just wanted to be bigger, watching Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. You want to look like the cartoon characters, man. So, yeah, I took a weight training class in high school, which also led to me being better in football. You would think I would start lifting football, but it really didn't have anything to do with that. But yeah, that's when I started, man. The age of 14, I literally haven't stopped since then. So
awesome, dude. No, I can relate to the cartoon stuff, man. Like, I grew up, my favorite cartoons were the Ninja Turtles, man. They were jacked. You had Popeye the spinach man. He downed the spinach and had those huge biceps. So I can definitely relate. I love that. Now, I kind of like to use that latter question just to kind of transition into my guests' upbringing, their backstory. So why don't you share with us, Henry, where did you grow up? Talk about, the sports that you played. I know football is a big part of your life. You even went and played college football, but why don't you just talk about where you grew up, the sports you played, some of those early childhood memories, and then we'll transition from there.
Yeah, man. So pretty much I grew up in a, mid-sized town, Columbus, Georgia. It's probably very west of Georgia, bordering Alabama. And that's where I grew up, man. It wasn't really anything dramatic or special about my childhood. I mean, I grew up in a lower middle-class family, pretty much played football from the age of 9 till I was 19. And also I did a little bit of track in middle school. So pretty much all my life I've been active. But like you were saying, I mean, I've always been into lifting. My dad, what he would do, he would bring me to the gym every now and then. Whenever the kids section wasn't open, I would be on the gym floor, basically whenever the owners were cool with it. And, I would play around with a few machines and stuff like that. And that's really how I got started, man. I had a little, a small weeder bench press in the backyard. Of course, it was my dad's. And every now and then I would get under the bench press and like do a little bit of weight. So it really kind of started in middle school, man, when I was around, 11 years old. That's when I kind of really like touched the weight, really, and even back then, I remember in middle school, I think I was around 12 years old. My mom had these exercise bands, the little aerobics bands or whatever. And I would literally lay in bed at night and just curl the bands, trying to get my arms bigger. So, it's just little stuff like that, man. I've always had an interest in, trying to build muscle and getting bigger. But it wasn't until, I was in high school where I had the opportunity to do it all the time. I mean, in the area that I grew up in, the south side of town in Columbus, we didn't have any gyms at the time. So driving all the way to the north side of town, of course, when I got in high school, my parents, they're not, I don't have a way to drive up there either. They're like, oh, we're not going to get you a gym membership. So, the weight training class in high school was something I really gravitated towards. So as soon as I saw it, like, as one of our classes we could select, I did it. And with me playing football, I was able to do it, take that class every single year. And that's pretty much where it started. I will say, when I got in there, honestly, I didn't have any expectations, man. A lot of my classmates was like, oh, yeah, you're not going to get any bigger. I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't really see any people change from taking a weight training class, but I really responded well to weight training, man. I remember, when I got in there, of course, I was lifting with the freshmen. By the end of that semester, I was lifting with the seniors. So, I responded really well to weight training, and I gained about 60 pounds in high school. Went from like 135, 130 to 190. And yeah, man, that's when, when you see those results at an early age like that, and you just, it really sticks with you, especially when it's something you've already been wanting to do. It really sticks with you, man. Like I said, it's just something I've been loving to do ever since. So I remember also, when I went to college and I played football there, I ended up walking on and making the team, but honestly, I quit before the season started. So I guess you could say I played, I guess you say I didn't, but whatever. But yeah, man, I remember quitting football, and, all I wanted to do was just be a student and lift weights, man. So even after I quit, I was still in the gym full time and everything, man. And I also, at that point, was trying to get back into track and field for a little bit, honestly. So I actually had dropped about 10 pounds trying to run track, man, but, decided not to do that. And a couple years after quitting football, man, I did my first bodybuilding show. That's been a wrap since then. So.
All right. So I'm going to interject here, Henry, because before we get into all things bodybuilding, I want to take a step back. So you grew up in SEC territory, right? Man, like I'm from the Midwest. I'm in Iowa currently. I've never been down to that neck of the woods of the United States, but growing up, I played college football for a year, grew up playing sports, playing football, obviously. And all you ever hear about is the SEC, going down south, man. So before we talk about bodybuilding, talk about football, because I know from your Instagram, that seemed to be a really big part of your life growing up. And then, being, from Georgia, being in SEC country, just for the listeners that don't necessarily understand, because I've got listeners, that aren't even in the United States, and they might not even understand, they might understand American football, but SEC football is a whole different ballgame from my understanding, right? So just talk about that. Talk about being from Georgia, how much football means, and just talk about what football meant to you at that younger age, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, man. Football meant to me, pretty much what bodybuilding means to me right now. That's pretty much how deep I was in it. I had dreams of going to NFL and stuff. So, in the SEC, like, people live and breathe their kids around, SEC football. Not necessarily my parents, but man, it is a big deal, man. People will take vacation days off work to watch football games. That's how big of a deal it is. So, growing up in the South, man, the competition's heavy. Everybody's athletic, So, I didn't go to like the best school for football. My school was more so academic driven. It was a prep school. But, definitely being one of the more athletic guys there, you definitely felt the pressure to play heavy and play hard. A lot of the guys I even grew up, playing Pee Wee football, some of them grew up to go and, play, sorry, that thing's beeping.
That's okay.
They went to grow up and play, some of them played college D1 ball. I have a cousin, Isaiah Crowell, who, was at Georgia for a little bit. And he ended up going to the Browns. I think he's at the Browns right now. No, I think he's probably with the Jets, but he's a running back in the NFL. So, I mean, we're not really close, but we're related because his dad and my dad are cousins. But yeah, man, it's just people you run into on a daily basis growing up in your childhood, and they're often doing big things. There was a high school, team, Carver High School, and they were a big team, and you had a lot of D1 recruits out of that high school. So that's how the South is, man. Football is more of like, a way of life. You know, it's not like something you just watch on the weekends. People, like I said, people playing their whole year, their whole year and their whole day around football, man. So it's just stuff like that where when you got a whole community or cities or the whole state, really, the whole state of Georgia is just beaming with talent, man. So for you to even stand out or even make it in a college football team, you know, even with my school, Savannah State, it wasn't a huge school, but for me to even walk on and make that team, you know, it really said a lot about, you know, my athletic talents. Unfortunately, I ended up hating football. I hated it when I got to college, man. In all honesty, I don't even watch football anymore. I watch it, but you know, I may watch, you know, the playoffs, the final part in the Super Bowl. But you know, the days I watched it, man, those are days of Reggie Bush, the guys out of Texas. What's his name? I can't even remember anymore. Matt Leinart. You know, all those guys, man. So in that time, that's when I was really into football. And you know, I was outside linebacker. When I got to college, I wanted to play safety, just want to be a huge safety ball and stuff. But not to get into bodybuilding too soon, but I've always been pretty strong. So I remember, you know, trying to walk onto the team, going to trials and stuff. We did our strength test, and I was stronger than all the, you know, defensive linemen and the linebackers. So they were like, "Oh yeah, you're definitely not playing safety, bro. Like, what are you doing?" So, you know, ended up being an outside linebacker in college, man. I always had pretty good speed, pretty good athletic ability. I just think sometimes maybe if I went to like a better high school, maybe I could have done something, or maybe, you know, if I went to a better college program, maybe I could have stuck it out and maybe, you know, try it out and made an NFL team, maybe, you know. But it's stuff I don't really think about anymore, man. It's funny how, you know, you have other interests inside of you that just take over. But yeah, football was something I watched all the time. I watched every single day of the NFL draft. You know, even how boring that is. Like, who does that? Who watches all the rounds of the NFL draft? Nobody. But that's something I did as a kid in high school. Carried the football around with me everywhere, man. And I remember even in high school, I wore ankle weights in high school. Like, you know, during the winter, I wear jeans and I wear the ankle weights under the jeans all day, you know, thinking that would make me better and faster, man. But that's the stuff I did, man. Pretty much I lived, ate, and slept football, same way I do with bodybuilding right now. So pretty much all that discipline, dedication I did towards that is in bodybuilding now. So, but yeah, to sum it up, bro, if you're not really about that SEC life, you know what? I just recommend anybody, you know, take a trip down to the South, man, and just during the football season, just go to a game, meet some people, or if you got some buddies in the South who are still into football, unlike me, just get the experience, man. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. So
I gotta take you up on that. I've gotta. I'm kind of like you, Henry. I played a year of college football at one point when I was in high school. We had some pretty solid football teams, and it's just like eat, sleep, breathe football. But then once I was done playing football in college,
yeah,
I just kind of walked away from it and left it behind, and I don't really think
right.
about it a lot. But it definitely, sports in general, not just football, really shaped my childhood, and I think sports can be a powerful outlet for young people. Now, something I want to touch on before we transition out of the kind of the childhood talk. You mentioned you went to a prep school, and I know, again, from doing a little studying up on you, you got a bachelor's degree in exercise science.
Mm-hmm.
So did the academic side of things, is that something that your parents really pushed you in that direction? Or was that something that you really enjoyed, or was it a little bit of both?
Yeah, it was definitely my mom for sure. My dad was a very laid back guy, man. I'm very much like him. And, you know, he just wanted me to go to school and make good grades. But my mom, you know, she's like, you're going to go to school, you're going to take this test to get into school, and you're going to not fail the test on purpose. So, you know, I remember taking this test to get into the school, and of course I passed it because I ended up going. But yeah, it's definitely more on my mom's side, man. She was straight. Yeah, she's definitely drilled us on academics. You know, even during the summer, we would have to do like summarize stuff out of newspaper articles and stuff like that. It's just, she was always on us, man. So it's definitely from my mom's side, definitely. definitely. Not saying that my dad didn't help. He actually taught me long division back in elementary school when he had the help. But you know, he's definitely, you know, more of the on the working side. I think he worked like 2 or 3 jobs when I was a kid. So he definitely worked a lot. My mom, you know, she helped more so around the house. So that's just how it was. You know, she drilled us on academics, man, drilled us. So definitely more on her side more than anything. But you know, as I got older, I did like, you know, school, more so math. Math was my strong point. So I changed my major 3 times in college, man. So
Talk about that. So what did you go to study initially? And then how did you end up, you know, graduating with your bachelor's degree in exercise science?
So yeah, I was a accounting major at first because, you know, I'm like, there's nothing but number crunching there. That's my thing, you know. And I remember my first day of accounting class, I was like, this is whack. So I was like, I don't think this is me, man, you know. And I changed because I've always been, you know, a big believer in just following what naturally interests you. So, you know, I've always been big on doing things that you like to do. So the next thing I was like, well, you know, civil engineering sounds cool. That's a lot of math too. Maybe I could be good at that. I stuck with that a bit longer. I stuck with that for 1 semester. And I was like, you know, I'm not really feeling this either. So I just started searching around for majors, man. Just Googled it, got a long list, went down the list. I saw exercise science, you know, and a friend at the time, I think she was also an exercise science major, and she's the one that mentioned it. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool, you know. So sat on it for a while, you know, and started just Googling schools that had it. And Georgia Southern, which was like 45 minutes away and a much bigger campus, you know, had, you know, that major that I could study. So end up transferring, you know, schools, transferring to Georgia Southern after my sophomore year. And I did that. And, you know, my original goal was to do physical therapy. But I suck at chemistry, man. So, you know, I barely passed Chem 1 with a C, and, you know, that's not enough to make it into a grad program, bro. So got to Chem 2. I took Chem 2 twice, man. I think the only reason why I passed it because I had the same professor twice, luckily. And he was like, well, I'll see how much this guy's struggling. Just give him a C. You know, so after that, I was kind of like, yeah, you know, and I was already into bodybuilding at that time, and working out. I really just, you know, for the longest time, man, to be honest, I've always worked out and everything, but I never knew it had a name called bodybuilding. For the longest time, I was just working out to get bigger. So it really wasn't until college I started to dive into bodybuilding more, and, you know, exercise science major, I learned about macros and stuff. So I started prepping my food, counting my macros, doing all that stuff on my own. And, you know, it started out, I was just really into, you know, the classic guys, Surge, Arnold, of course, a lot of the old school, you know, 80s bodybuilders, 70s, 80s, Lee Haney, all those guys. And it's funny, man, I remember seeing, you know, a picture of Ronnie Coleman once. I was like, that's just too big, man. That's too big. That's crazy. You know, I didn't think it was like stupid or anything, but I was like, I don't think I want to get that big, you know. But, you know, as the years go on, man, and I ended up doing my first show. I got bit by the bug, and I remember coming across. Here's the crazy thing too. You know, I remember coming across a picture of Phil Viz, not even knowing who he was at the time. He wasn't even Mr. Olympia yet. This was like in 2009, 2010, but obviously he was on the come up at that time, right? I didn't know who he was, but I was like, you know, I remember seeing a picture of him and Tony Freeman at a show on bodybuilding.com, just pictures. And I was like, yeah, if I do bodybuilding, if I got that big, I would look like that guy and that guy. And I just always remembered them because they were the first 2 guys in open bodybuilding. I was like, you know what? I would like to look like that. So, well, you know, later to come to find out they're 2 legends, and one of them is a 7-time Mr. Olympia. So it makes sense, man. You know, and also I think that's why you need, you know, good looking physiques in bodybuilding, because it does, you know, I think, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, nobody wants to be that big. But I think if you have the right physiques in the sport, man, you know, and not just mass, I think you can still draw, you know, people to open bodybuilding the same way. You know, I know classic is really taking off right now because all the guys everybody's aesthetic, right? So, you know, it's more of an appealing look, you know, and from a human nature standpoint, you want the look that's more aesthetic, that's more appealing to you. So bodybuilding does take an acquired taste after a while, after years. And if that's somebody's first time seeing that, they're not going to probably be too accepting of it initially. But yeah, man, that's pretty much the journey there as far as like from, college and all that stuff. I kind of got off on a tangent there, kind of forgot where I started off at, to be honest.
You're good, man. That's perfect. And I love what you just said about, we need those aesthetically pleasing physiques within bodybuilding. I agree 100%. I think that's a great point, and I'm glad we're having the conversation now, because it's like I had this conversation with an IFBB pro here, I think it was last week, just talking about the Olympia, and we were discussing Big Ramy. I personally, now when you're a winner, and I respect that, right? So I respect Big Ramy as the Mr. Olympia. I just have no desire for a physique like that. I don't like his physique. I think it's just really unbodybuilding, if that even makes sense. So I hear you, Henry. I think bodybuilding needs a variety of physiques. I think we need those aesthetically pleasing ones. I think we need the freaks, because all of us have different bodies, and bodybuilding is open to interpretation per se. So great point. Now let's talk about, you kind of gave us a general, picture of how you kind of got into bodybuilding. Talk about your first competition.
Okay.
Did somebody approach you, or were you just looking at the magazines on YouTube or something, and you're like, hey, I'm going to do a competition? How did that happen? And then talk about the first one, please.
It was really a friend of mine, man. I did my first bodybuilding show in 2010, or was it 2011? 2010, 2011. But it was really a friend of mine, man. We were in Georgia Southern, in Statesboro, Georgia, which is the middle of nowhere. But the local gym there hosted a bodybuilding show every year. So he posted pictures online one day, on Facebook, that he did this bodybuilding show. I was like, man, that looks really cool. I was like, I've been working out for a long time now. I think I could win that. I think that'll be pretty cool. So, he's like, yeah, man, you should do it next year. You should do it next year. And, I took a whole year to do it. I think the show was in October. I had heard about it the October previous. And I pretty much just got my money together, started working just to start dieting and get the food together for it. But that's how I heard about it, man. It was actually a friend I saw do the show. I saw him do it. I instantly took interest in it. And, with a little bit of encouragement on his side, I just ended up doing the show. And that was it, man. The gym was literally down the road. So it's not like I had to go far or anything. So I just did my own prep and everything. And which, who knows how to prep their first time on their own, right? I just ate clean. I thought hibachi chicken and rice was clean eating, bro. So, but with me being young and a fast metabolism, I was already pretty lean. So I didn't have to do much dieting for it, to be honest. And actually, with all the years of me working out, I had a pretty solid foundation going into the show. It wasn't a big show. I mean, I think it was only me and one other guy in my class. And then I think for the overall, it was 3 guys. So it wasn't a huge show, but it wasn't a sanctioned show. It wasn't an NPC or anything. It was just a show hosted by the gym. And that's really what got me started, man. And,
excellent. Now you said you first started competing in the NPC in 2015. So let's jump up to 2015. Did you continue to prep yourself, or did you hire a coach? What did that kind of look like? And then let's talk about that competition history within the NPC, if you don't mind, Henry.
Okay, yeah. So, I started transitioning to NPC started in 2014. So the whole 2014, I just took time off to grow. I hired a coach for my off season. That's my first time getting serious with everything. So I wanted to hire a coach. I want to know what I was doing, make sure I wasn't doing nothing stupid. So got that off season out the way. Once 2015 hit, I ended up going to another coach who was pretty popular at the time. and in Georgia anyway. And yeah, he prepped me for the Palmetto Classic, which is, is up here in South Carolina and Columbia. So I ended up doing that show in 2015, won overall there. Trey Bennett, who hosts Junior USA's, immediately wanted me to do Junior USA's like 2 weeks after that show. And I was, at that time, bro, I was broke. Like, I'm like, I can't, I just did 12 weeks with my coach and everything else. So I was like, I really cannot afford to do it. So I didn't do it. And honestly, I didn't feel ready to do it. And the following year did Junior US. 2015, yeah, I didn't prep myself, obviously. 2016 for Junior USA's, I prepped myself. I had a little bit of advice from a friend, who was had been bodybuilding for years. He's a close friend of mine. So he would give me tips here and there, and everything. But as far as the diet and everything, I didn't have any coach I was checking in with, every week or anything like that. So did Junior USA's in 2016, won overall there. And that was another moment that made me realize, like, hey, I could probably do something here. Like, I just prepped myself for, the first national show of the year, and I won overall. So did that, met Trey Bennett, who introduced me to Phil Viz after Junior USA's. And that's how I've been with Phil ever since, So the following year, of course, I did Amateur Olympia 2017 in Vegas, where, only top 2 overall, got the pro card. I missed it by 1 spot, which was very devastating because my goal was to turn pro by the time before I was 27. By the time I was 27, which I still did, 2018, the following year in July, I got, the pro card at USA's, with Phil, of course. And man, that was just such an awesome moment to be in Vegas again. It almost felt like redemption, even though it was a different show, to go back to Vegas again and, get the pro card, man. It felt really good. It felt really good. So, which was definitely one of the most stressful preps of my life. So I'm glad we were able to pull it off. It was close, man. I think Ron Gordon, who's also pro now, he did that show, and it was really close between me and him, but I ended up pulling it off, man. So that was my NPC journey before. Now we getting ready for the pro debut, man. So
all right, before we get into the IFBB, you just mentioned that you hired Phil Viz. He's which I saw on your bio on Instagram. He's still your coach. Talk about, and he's a well-known coach. I know he's been on Fuad's podcast. I listened to a little bit of that in the past, but talk about what Phil has brought to the table. So sounds like you did pretty awesome prepping yourself, but how did Phil help you kind of go to that next level and help you earn that IFBB pro card? What did he bring to the table for you personally, Henry?
Besides just awesome customer service from Phil, man, out of all the coaches I've had, I don't think I've had anybody with a better response time. You know what I'm saying? So that off the bat really, really stuck out to me, when I sent him the stuff, and also how detailed he was with, his questionnaire and everything. That stuff really stuck out to me. And it really is a motivating factor when you feel like your coach cares as much as you do, which is obvious. You want them to, right? The other thing too, he helped me push to the next level was, mainly the conditioning, man. I mean, shape wise and stuff, I was lean for Junior USA's, but I wasn't, that good of conditioning. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't terrible, but I definitely could have been better. So I knew going, to get the pro card, that wasn't going to cut it. I knew I had to be in shape. I knew it. I just knew I had to bring a different level of conditioning. And that's the main thing he really helped, is just with the conditioning, the peaking, all those little details I didn't know about, obviously, with only my 2 years of experience in the NPC. He really helped me bring that out and just learn a ton of stuff through the peaking process and the carb load and everything like that. And just, not thinking you have to do more cardio to get shredded, because you don't. And it's not always the case. So that's the main way he helped me, man, was the conditioning aspect, to be able to cross that line. Because without it, I definitely wouldn't have. I probably would have been bigger, fuller, but I wouldn't have been shredded though. So the fullness aspect I had down, getting lean to the point where you could see some hamstrings, but the glutes weren't there. No lines in the glutes. No, the glutes weren't boxed out or anything like that. So I would say I definitely wouldn't have won Junior USA, especially with it being a 2-day show. I mean, USA, especially would have been a 2-day show. I wouldn't have won that show without Phil being there, man. So, you know, so that's the main thing, the whole peaking and conditioning for sure.
Now you said, let's talk about adversity. It's something that you posted kind of on your Instagram. I think it was your last post, but before we get to that post, I want to talk about what you said earlier. That prep leading up to the 2018 USAs was, you said it was really tough. What was tough about that prep? Kind of what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome? Why didn't you touch on that if you don't mind?
Yeah, man. I mean, the main thing was that, you know, bodybuilding is expensive. So I had to work 3 jobs to get that prep done. So I was personal training at this time I was living in LA, living in California, which is already expensive. So I was, you know, personal training, 24-hour fitness at a gym. I was working at GNC part-time, and I was also doing Uber and Lyft. So between those 3 things, man, I was all over the place, you know, pretty much just 12 to 16-hour days every day. I was probably averaging 4 to 5 hours of sleep, man. So, you know, along with that, you know, the body gets stressed out, you know, it's hard to cut, you know, the body's not responding. So we went through a phase where, you know, bro, I had to do 3 hours of cardio for like a week. So we went through a phase where we really had to push it really hard. And usually the most cardio I ever done on a prep was like 45 minutes for maybe 4 days. So it was different, man. The main thing was just, yeah, the amount of the workload, and also the house I was living in, man, the AC broke. And this is middle of summer, man, in California. We're in the valley at that, so we're not even in the cool part of LA. And yeah, we had a heat wave. It's like 110 degrees outside, and you want to talk about not being able to sleep comfortably, man. Like, it's crazy. What the way I got through it was I would wet a shirt and sleep under the fan. And that's and once the shirt dried out, get up again, go wet it. And you know, you got this wet spot in bed from having a wet shirt. But I mean, that's the only way I could do it, man. That's the only way I could do it. Now that I know they have, like, you know, portable air conditioners now. I probably should have did that, but you know, at the time, man, you're just thinking about conserving as much money as you can. So between the finances and the, you know, the heat and stuff, and the very little hours of sleep, that's why that prep was so tough. And I was so stressed out after that prep, man. I took a break from the gym like 2 months after that. I did my rebound and everything. I made sure I got through that those 5 or 6 weeks after the show. But after that, man, I took a break. And by a break, I mean I was only going to the gym like 3 times a week. So not like I completely dropped the gym, but that prep really stressed me out, bro. It really did. So I didn't even want to see the gym after that. So
that's some legit stuff, man. I appreciate you touching on that, because that's life, man. Right? That's the reality. We see all the social media highlight reels, and we see the muscle, and we see the, you know, the picture of the people smiling with their pro card. But dude, there's you know, hence the name behind the muscle. There's always a story behind the muscle. There's always a story behind the Instagram post and that picture with the pro card. Right now, how did you end up out in LA, and why did you make the move out there? How long were you living out there for, Henry?
out there for about 2.5 years. So my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now. She works in news, so she got a news reporter job in LA. I was working as, you know, I was working at the sheriff's department at the time as a correctional officer. So, you know, didn't really like my job, but it was pretty stable, especially for what I was doing. It was very predictable schedule and everything. And so that's why I liked it. For you know, for bodybuilders, we love to be regimented. So, but yeah, man, that's the reason why I went out there. And, you know, I never had plans or even thought about going to California or LA. And I wasn't going to go with her until, you know, had did USAs. Had did the amateur. You know, came back. I was still on vacation. Kept thinking about it, you know, and just kept thinking about it. And a week before I had to go back to work, I was like, you know what, I'll go to LA. And I just didn't go back to work, man. I turned in my uniform, gave them like a 1-day notice, you know, via email. And I was like, peace, I'm out of here, you know. So it was really a spur of the moment thing for me, but I felt like it was something I needed, you know, in a way. But that move alone was tough, man. The adjustment was tough. It was probably not the best time to try to do a move right after the show because, you know, my rebound was trash. Like, I mean, I didn't really have the proper rebound. I mean, I did okay. And, you know, I was able to land the job pretty quick, you know, once I moved. It was, you know, just a little job, wasn't nothing major. And, you know, I was able to, we drove out there and everything. I was able to get life started somewhat, but it was still rough, man. So it was hard adjusting. And even going into that prep, I was still adjusting to life in LA. So really everything leading up to the show and through the show was just 100 miles an hour as soon as we got to LA. I had zero time to enjoy that place while I was out there. So it was all gym and business the entire time I was out there, man. So that's how I got out there, man. My wife, she works in news, and that's why we're also in Charleston right now. She's a news reporter. I mean, she's a news anchor out here. And same thing out there, man. I was going to stay in LA to do the Cali Pro, but LA went just to complete crap once the pandemic hit. So once everything got thrown off with plans and everything, I was like, screw it. I'll just come to Charleston, man, and ended up out here. So, yep.
So that kind of leads us to where we're at today. I want you to talk about after you receive your IFBB Pro card, why don't you just unpack? We go into 2019, then we go into 2020. Why don't you just unpack some of the happenings within your life? Because I know bodybuilding took a back seat, and I would love to have you just share some of those struggles that you kind of went through and how you kind of began to pull yourself, you know, out of that struggle to where we're at in 2021.
Okay, so yeah, you know, 2019, you know, after I did USA's, got back in the gym, you know, started getting the motivation back, you know, from that hard prep, you know, probably around November, right before Thanksgiving. I was like, okay, I'm starting my off season now. I'm getting ready for the pro debut in 2020. So that was 2018. All of 2019 was going well. You know, I'm finding my groove in LA. You know, I'm working some security stuff. You know, I'm still driving Uber and Lyft part-time, making, you know, I was driving my car a lot. I was actually making really good money from that. You can make really good money from that in LA, surprisingly. And, you know, I was making my own schedule between that security and some personal training clients. So I was making pretty decent money then. And, but like I said, it was just hustle all the time. So, but that whole offseason was really great, man. I had a routine down. I was growing a lot. I was my biggest I ever been. I think I had got to like 310 at one point. And that's the heaviest I've ever been to date. And, you know, I was really excited going into, you know, the prep. And then January of 2020 got really sick. This is when I guess coronavirus on the bud. And I'm pretty sure it was already out here. I hadn't been sick since like I was 14 at that point, and I was sick for 10 days, lost like 10 pounds. This was right before the LA Fit Expo. So, you know, I'm trying to get back in the gym, gain my weight back real quick before I go to Expo. Ended up doing that, you know, end up gaining about 10 pounds back. So I was like 305 at the Expo because I wanted to look huge and everything. So that sickness kind of started off, and ended up not starting my prep off where I wanted to be at 310 because I had got sick. But regardless, started the prep. And by the time, man, March hit, prep from like late January to late February, beginning of March, everything just kind of fell apart. So at first they were like, oh yeah, gyms are only going to be closed for 2 weeks. You know, 2 weeks rolled by, still no gym. On top of that, people are panic buying in LA. So not only do they not have toilet paper, there's no meat. So there's no meat, man. I remember going to this, doing a security gig on Saturday nights, Friday night, Saturday mornings. I remember getting done with like at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., headed straight to Walmart, and dude, there's already a line around the building. So you already know like the first 30 people are buying all the meat. And so I was like, at this point, it's useless, man. Then I found a friend, who lives, no lie, probably like 30 miles away from where I live. We met halfway. Apparently he's enough on the outskirts away from LA to where they're not panic buying yet. So it's, oh yeah, we're fine here, bro. Yeah, I'll get you chicken breasts and stuff. Literally met this man halfway to get food. And I was like, man, you know what? This ain't gonna work, bro. And then, money slowed up from security. Nobody's doing nothing. Everything's shutting down. Gyms closed down. And also I still couldn't make money from driving my own car around Uber and Lyft because people are scared to go everywhere now. So money dried up, man. And, on top of that, I got really depressed because, I just got my whole pro debut prep snatched from me. So that's when I waited about a couple more weeks, and I was like, you know what, I'll just go to Charleston, man, sooner or later. And I was like, no, their gym's still open. They still got food and everything. So came out here. The day I got out here, they shut the gyms down. So that's like, going on month 2 of not working out, right? And I was lucky enough to land a management position at GNC out here. But no lie, 3 months into that, GNC goes bankrupt. They shut down half their stores. So of course, one of the stores that closed, I lose yet another job, right? So I'm like, gosh, man, like what is going on, bro? Like, I'm trying to get back in the gym, and I'm, depression is something I've been dealing with for years. So, it's really hit me hard at this point. So on top of that, the gyms had just opened up about a month ago. So I'm struggling trying to get back in there. I'm in there like 2 to 3 times a week. But on top of that, honestly, man, I'm just broke at this point from losing the jobs and between paying for stuff to move, get my car shipped. Like I'm done, bro. So I end up working from home. I was like, I'll get into, get a tech job. Tech is always stable. So I get this tech support job with Apple really quick, just a basic tech support job. I'm a little tech savvy, so it wasn't too bad. But bro, that was like the most anxiety-inducing job ever, which is added on to my depression and everything. It was perfect for, getting me jump-started back in the bodybuilding. I started eating my meals and stuff again, which just gave me some confidence and peace of mind to deal with the job. But after that, man, I ended up quitting that job after a year into it. And now, within the last few months, I'm working another job. But, from May of last year to now that's how long I've been back on this path of trying to get back to the pro debut. So it's been a little bit over a year now. I've been in the gym trying to get my size back and get ready for the pro debut, man. But that's a crash course of it, man. Even moving out here, I was going to drive my car across country. My car broke down in Arizona in the middle of nowhere. Somehow, some way, I was in Kingman, Arizona, the only small town there, and I got lucky enough. They had Lyft and Uber rides there, man. I got stuck there for 3 days, granted, but I called it Lyft all the way from there to Vegas to the airport. Man, it was, bro, I was like, when I say everything, literally everything that could have gone wrong in my life from 2020 till up until that point, up until like May of last year, literally went wrong, man. So bro, you want to talk about life just kicking you in the ass. That's like every month there was something, every single month. So I'm at the point now where things are getting better. Still way far from perfect, but yeah.
So I would like you to talk about, if you don't mind, the depression aspect of things. You said it's something that you've struggled with for a long time. Again, I think this is something that, I don't necessarily struggle with depression, but there's definitely a lot of anxiety in my life. And I think there's a lot more awareness nowadays around depression, anxiety. When I was growing up, struggling with anxiety, I didn't know what it was. It's something I couldn't really talk to my parents about because it's just, you don't know what you don't know, especially when you're younger. But depression, what does that look like for you? Because I know it takes on different forms for different people, just like anxiety does. What does depression look like to you, Henry? And then how have you learned to kind of work through that and deal with that or manage it, however you kind of want to word that? But talk about that, please.
I mean, honestly, I'm still working to learn my way through it. My wife says I need to go to therapy, which I haven't done. But I'm still learning to get through it, man. I still deal with it. But for me, what it looks like, it's shut down for me. I go from being like this super motivated person, super work ethic, to just not wanting to do anything. One thing I noticed too is just memory, man. Like it'll be stuff like I just have no recollection of. I'm going through that through a depressive state. Like, let's say if like me and my wife, we went to like this plantation out here, you know, just to learn the history of it and stuff. And even then, man, I see that myself. I see myself having a hard time remembering bits and pieces of it because I was going through that phase at the time. So it's stuff like that where you're kind of just in a haze, like you're not really there mentally. So definitely memory and shut down, man. That's why, like, for me, I just try to stay disciplined with, you know, the day-to-day life of bodybuilding, no matter how I feel, because I know also it can snowball. So let's say I wake up, you know, it could be something that triggers a depressive episode or whatever. And, you know, on top of it, I'm like, well, you know, immediately too, I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat. That's why, like, earlier this year and last year, when I was really at the gym, I was only eating once a day. So that's another reason why I lost so much size so much fast. So that's for me, I don't get hungry. I don't want to eat. So I tell myself not to do that because it's just snowballs. So then I feel worse throughout the day because I'm like, well, you didn't eat anything. You know, now your workout sucks, which even, you know, you have a bad workout that leads on top of it. So for me, that's what it's been looking like, man. And really, to be honest, this started when I was working at the jail. I don't know if it was the jail or other disappointments I was dealing with, but yeah, that's when it started, man. Maybe it was my work environment, man, that triggered it. But I have been dealing with it ever since, where I have these episodes where, you know, I just want to quit everything in life. And but yeah, like I said, I'm still working on ways to deal with it, man. One day I will go to therapy though, try to find some better coping mechanisms for it. But right now, you know, when people say, you know, the gym is therapy, like it really is for me. So, and one thing I can't bank on is having a bad workout. So that's why, like, you know, I make sure I stay on top of my food and everything. Cause I know if I get to the gym and I missed a couple meals, that's going to make me just pissed off, man. And, you know, probably trigger another episode. So I just try to stay away from stuff like that and stay on my game, man, if I can help it. So.
Awesome, man. Thank you for touching on that, Henry. Now let's talk about, we're going to start wrapping things up. We're getting close to an hour here. I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to touch on a few things. Let's get to something a little bit brighter. Pro debut. You've kind of alluded to that right now, as we sit here in October of 2021, what thoughts do you have about your pro debut next year? What are you kind of working towards?
Honestly, just working to more overall size. With me being 6'2", I just have to fill out my frame, man. And with me having such a major setback last year, I feel like I'll be improved, but definitely not as much as I would like to be, which is fine, man. At this point, you know, I just learned I just got to keep stepping forward. You can't really think too much about these things, and I may end up doing better than I think. So, I mean, goal, you know, of course, you know, I would love to, my realistic goal is to get first call out. Even better goal is to get third. And, you know, dream goal would be obviously to get first place. You know, who doesn't want that? So right now the goal is to do Indie Pro. That could change, you know. I got a lot of things up in the air coming in January, so that could change as well. But we'll see, man. But yeah, that's the overall goal, is just overall size and bring the same conditioning I've been bringing at my amateur shows, which I think will be a good look for open bodybuilding, you know, considering, you know, the looks we've seen, like you said, with Big Ramy and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the goal.
Cool. Yeah, I've had a few guys on here recently that are looking to compete in the Indie Pro, whether that's in the open or the 212. That's actually, you know, Indiana isn't too far from Iowa, and I'm actually thinking about myself going there as a spectator. I don't compete in the NPC, or, you know, not a pro bodybuilder, but I think it'd be kind of cool. It's in the Midwest. It's not, relatively speaking, too far from where I'm at in Iowa. So it'd be fun to see some of these guests that I'm bringing onto the podcast actually competing, like yourself, if you were able to compete and it'd be your pro debut. It would be cool to connect with you guys out there. What is your, when you're trying to put on size, when you're not in prep, what does training look like for you? Generally speaking, is it higher volume? You know, is it kind of the pro split where you're training one or two body parts, per session? What does it look like overall, Henry?
Overall, it is, it's a combination of a strength and volume split. So I got a couple days for upper and lower body where I would focus on, just trying to get stronger. Nothing below, 6 to 8 reps, you know what I'm saying? And nothing above 10 reps. But I generally on those days, I'll have like 2 working sets where I try to get a heavy 2 sets of 8, And those days are just strictly focused on trying to get stronger. Really only 4 movements on those days. Then I'll take a rest day and it's more so into the bro split, chest tries, back bi, shoulders, and legs again. And those are more volume focused days where, I'm doing higher reps, 20, 15, 12, 10, stuff like that for my sets. And, pretty much just increasing the time under tension for those days and just really pumping blood into that muscle. Those days are more so machine and cable focus as well. And on the heavier days, they're more so definitely, free weight and stuff like that. Or, for legs, heavy hacks or stuff like that, or pendulum squat, stuff to focus on the specific body parts. But yeah, typically, man, over an 8 or 9 day split, 8 or 9 day period, I train everything twice a week, pretty much. So I love doing that, man. I feel like, as far as the training frequency, I feel like I need that. I feel like that's really good for the physique overall. That's just me, though. That's my opinion. There are a lot of people, push-pull legs is really popular right now. And also the bro split has always been the bro split, man, which is something I did for years. But yeah, this particular split, I love it, man. I feel like my recovery time from hitting the body parts is good enough to where I can keep going and building that stimulus and creating that opportunity for growth. So that's what my split looks like right now without getting into too much detail.
Is kind of the lower body, your legs, is that kind of like the biggest body part in terms of you trying to bring that up to be prepared to step on a pro stage, or is it another area?
Yeah, it's definitely lower body too. I know we can only do so much about calves as well, but I train my calves 3 times a week, man. And just, I don't want to look like I don't train. But yeah, legs is definitely the priority, man. They always have been, having long legs. And my quads aren't small, man. I got 32-inch quads. It's just that when you're tall, man, nothing looks, you don't have that wow factor as much when you're tall, you know what I'm saying? So I know I can pair well on stage, so I'm curious to see how I look, compared to other guys. But yeah, it's legs and delts. My back is pretty good. I do need a bit more width though, but back thickness is there. And yeah, arms and chest are fine. But yeah, it's mainly shoulders, back width, and legs. Those are my main 3 that I'm trying to bring up. So
very cool, man. We're gonna wrap it up, Henry. I really appreciate you coming on today. I really appreciate you opening up, man, and kind of just pulling back a layer or 2 in your life. That's really what this podcast is all about. Just top bodybuilders, coaches coming on and sharing their story. Is there anything kind of just in closing that you would like to share with the listeners? Maybe a piece of advice, maybe it's something from your own life experience that you would just like to kind of like relay to the listeners. I'd love to kind of hear that from you at this point.
Yeah, man, the biggest thing I learned in life, especially getting back into the scene with bodybuilding and getting back on track is, treat the small victories like a big deal too, man. Treat the small victories like a big deal, even if it's something minimal, like, hey, I got to the gym 4 times this week instead of 3, or, I increased my bench by 1 rep. Anything, you can use to keep you propelling forward, man. Just treat it like a big deal. Treat it like a sign of significance, to help keep you pushing forward, man. So that's my main word of advice. Treat the small victories like a big deal. So
awesome, man. Henry, it's been great, man. I again, thank you for coming on. I greatly appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, man. Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad I saw that DM because I don't really check that inbox, but I'm glad I checked it and saw that you messaged me. So appreciate you for having me on, bro.
You're very welcome. Once again, listeners, if you're on YouTube watching, I appreciate you guys so very much for listening, for coming back to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast. If it wasn't for you guys, this podcast wouldn't be happening. The growth on YouTube, the growth on Instagram, it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for you listeners, you subscribers. So once again, thank you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Why is that important? Because I release all of the Behind the Muscle podcast episodes first on YouTube. Sometimes I release them the night before. I make a post about them. So if you want to stay up on all of the episodes, I'm releasing episodes just nonstop, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes a week. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube so that you know when those episodes are available. You can be first to listen to them. Also, another huge favor I'd ask of you guys, if you are subscribed to YouTube, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment. Let Henry know, let myself know what really resonated with you in terms of Henry's story and what he shared with us today. And then take this episode, please share it on all of your social media platforms. Tag Henry, tag myself. That way we know that you listened to this episode specifically and found great value. And finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.